Susan Gardner here from Municipal World. We're in beautiful Quebec City this week. Joining me in the Municipal World Media Center is Deryn Rizzi. Deryn is the fire chief for the Vaughan Fire Service. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for coming in to chat with us. You're in a non-traditional role for a woman, heading up the fire service for the city of Vaughan, and you've come at that position coming through the ranks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came into this position?
Sure. So I actually started as a teacher. So I taught grade 6, 7, and then I taught kindergarten. And when I was teaching, I used to be an athlete, so I wanted something a little bit more physically challenging. I swam for a master's swim team. One of the swimmers said, "Why don't you apply to the fire department?" I had no idea what a firefighter did, but I applied. Out of 2,500 people, I was one of 19 that was hired.
Yes.
And then that's where my career started. And I just fell in love with the profession.
Really? So, as a woman, probably some challenges in that experience.
I always like to look forward as opposed to looking back, but obviously when I entered into the fire service, I remember my first captain told me I would never drive a fire truck, but that was just the perception at that particular time.
Did you drive a fire truck?
I did drive a fire truck. I pumped. I've done every role. I specialized in technical rescue. I spent a lot of my time as a firefighter on technical rescue teams, and then when I became a captain, the posting for deputy fire chief was posted, and my platoon chief was one that suggested that I apply. So it was great to have mentors in the fire service that believed in me and were the ones that were sort of pushing me along to try new things.
That's fantastic. So, what is it about fire service that you find engaging? Why is it a great career?
Well, it's for people who love to serve their community, and I really believe that firefighters are a special type of people. They're very type A personalities, but they also really enjoy interacting with people, very social. Our firefighters are very social. I'm incredibly proud to say the Vaughan Fire Rescue Service this year, actually in 2018, received a 100% citizen satisfaction rating. It's the highest. Thank you. It's all because of the team, our firefighters, inspectors, clerk typists, training department, communications, mechanical. Everyone plays a role in serving our citizens. And that over the last 5 years in my role as deputy and also as fire chief, we've really been focusing on service excellence. You'll see that theme throughout the organization, meaning City of Vaughan, and we're really focusing on that. So 800 people were surveyed, and I really truly believe all 800 did not have direct interaction with the fire service. But because we've also been working on our branding in terms of putting a lot of public messaging out in regards to what we do, and that's visual messaging, verbal, we're on media. So even if people don't interact with the fire service, they see on a fairly regular basis what we're doing in our community.
And I think, that piece of public service, I think there's few citizens that don't have appreciation for the fact that fire service people walk into the fire for us, and that's an incredibly powerful act of service to the community and to families. So
absolutely, there's a wide array of things that our firefighters are doing, everything from technical rescue. In the City of Vaughan, we have a subway system, so that was a 3-year project just to get our firefighters ready for that. We now have a hospital coming in. Obviously, with all of our infrastructure, it brings in a lot of commuters, so in terms of MVCs, motor vehicle accidents, medical calls. So we have a lot of different challenges, but we have developed a massive training yard. We have a fire tower there, trench simulator, so we're trying to be very progressive in regards to our training to ensure our firefighters have the skill sets to deal with any type of hazard in our city.
And I know they also do some great things. I saw a recent story that they saved some ducklings from.
Yeah. That's funny, absolutely. So That was a funny one. We were just at a motor vehicle accident, and someone had seen the little ducklings down the sewer. So you can get any type of call. The ones that we're most proud of are when we interact with children who have cancer, and we try and do little birthday parties for them. We brought a young woman to her prom in the fire truck. And she's since passed away. But,
Oh my gosh.
and that's hard. That's hard for the firefighters because we can make connections with these people in the community, and we want to show how much we care for them. And obviously, cancer is something in the fire service that's a problem for us. We have presumptive legislation on that, meaning that if a firefighter gets cancer, it's presumed that they got it through the workplace. But that's something that we're very sensitive to, and we want to engage with members of our community because that it impacts us on a day-to-day.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. So, in terms of the gender breakdown, men and women in the fire service today, what does that look like?
So we're very proud. We have 10% of our service is women, and I'm talking on the operation side. So our firefighters,
Yes.
and the national average is 3%.
Wow.
So we're over 3 times. And in terms of when you take a look, so firefighters have the option of going through promotional routines. So they have to go through their class exams, and then they can choose to compete for an acting captain position, district chief position, platoon chief position. And we have 10% of our captains right now are also females. So I'm very proud of that because it means that there's not that glass ceiling. We don't stop. And actually, we just promoted our first acting district chief, who is a female. And I believe that might be the first district chief in all of Ontario. So it's great because it's a tactical role, and it's nice to see that the women are moving into those roles. And I always say that the females haven't been in the business long enough, so we're starting to be there, and you're starting to see the movement to those roles.
That's fantastic. So, for young folks who are interested in perhaps having a career in fire and rescue service, what sort of advice would you give them?
Now they absolutely must go through a pre-fire service program. Most fire departments are looking for NFPA qualifications, so NFPA 1001 level 1, level 2, NFPA 472, which is hazmat, and they can get that through a pre-fire service college program. The only concern that I have when I have a young person coming in and saying I want to be a firefighter is they could go to school. It's fairly expensive, the pre-fire service programs, and quite honestly there aren't a lot of jobs that become available. It's very competitive. So when our last round of hiring, there was 1,481 candidates that applied, and we hired about 16 or 17. So it's incredibly competitive. So I always say have a backup plan. So you might want to go into a trade. You might want to get your go to school for paramedics or paramedicine, but always have a different avenue just in case. But keep trying, because when I was in recruit class, I remember one of my classmates had tried for 10 years. So there is the possibility of getting on, but it's not, you don't just go to school and get a job. That's not normally how it's done. You have to try for a few years.
Okay, so it's not a fast process.
No.
But if you're successful, it can obviously be a very rewarding career.
I honestly believe it's the best job in the world, but I'm certainly biased.
If someone's interested in pursuing a leadership role in the fire service, what does that process look like?
I always suggest to people who are looking to get into leadership roles to really immerse themselves in the fire service. So obviously going to conferences, much like these types of conferences in your municipal sector, speaking at conferences, getting involved in boards. So there's the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and I feel that I've been fairly successful in going through those areas. So I was the vice president of the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. I'm now the chair of the Human Relations Committee for the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and that provides a lot of exposure and a lot of different opportunities. So I would just say get involved in your profession, and it will really help boost you.
And you get involved in some speaking opportunities and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I make sure that I was worried that I might pigeonhole myself in regards to diversity inclusion. I'm doing my PhD in women, gender, and feminist studies, so I tend to get asked to speak about that quite a lot. But in our field, tactical presentations are obviously valued. So I have spoken nationally about active shooters. I've gone down to the States to talk about leadership. Recently, I went to the U.S. National Fire Academy. So that is the think tank for the U.S. Fire Service. There's 50,000 fire departments in the U.S. And I spoke about LGBTQ+. So that, for the fire service in itself is pretty cutting edge and progressive, and hopefully we're changing some mindsets.
And do you see that change starting to happen already within fire service?
I absolutely do, and it's on both sides. It's not just administration, but also the associations are seeing that their membership is very diverse, and I think on both ends we're creating programs and messaging that shows that we're welcoming to everyone.
I think we're at an incredible tipping point for that kind of acceptance in many ways. And there's obviously many challenges right around us still, but I think we're at a really fantastic point that we're talking about those things. And
I always say I'm incredibly proud of the fire service, and I always like to look forward, and I think we're going into a great era.
So fire service, obviously, it's a dangerous profession. It's why we hold it in such high regard, but we don't always know about the impacts that it has on the people who do that work inside the organization.
Absolutely. So in regards to PTSD, or we also call it PTSI for injury, that is something that a lot of fire services are struggling with in regards to creating appropriate programming, because you can't prevent your firefighters from attending those incidents. But what you can do is build up their resiliency. So you need to create programs. So there's R2MR programs. You can create an in-house program. We have a wellness fitness initiative. So that also takes a look at physical fitness, but we also send our firefighters to a doctor. So they have behavioral testing on a regular basis, and they have the ability to be referred. We have a trauma assist program. We have a peer support program. So we have a lot of different programming in place to support our firefighters for before an incident and after an incident. And we have also created an SOG, so it talks about what type of incidents our firefighters go to, and then how we should handle the situation after the fact. So sometimes we will bring in specialists to sit down and debrief with our firefighters. Other times our platoon chiefs and district chiefs can do the debrief process. But it's a fairly in-depth program. We've just yesterday, we're working with WSIB, so we will be one of 3 fire departments in the province. So there's 437 fire departments in the province of Ontario. We will be one of 3 that will be doing a pilot project with WSIB. So we're pretty excited about that. They'll be the ones that will share the details on that program, but it is something that we're definitely trying to tackle.
Fantastic. I think, the reality is, we know all employers have a responsibility to create a psychologically safe workplace in cases, such as fire service or police service. There's obviously so many more extreme situations that those individuals will find themselves in. And it's great to know that the fire service is taking such a proactive and detailed approach to.
Absolutely. If you take a look at presumptive legislation, the theory behind that is if we broke you, we have the obligation to fix you, right? But as an administrator, absolutely, it is the right thing to do to create these programming. But on the other side, as an administrator, we also need to acknowledge the financial implications of that when your firefighters go off on WSIB. And so you have 2 reasons to really work on your programming to ensure resiliency of the firefighters and ensure that you have the appropriate programming and supports there for them, because as you said, they are seeing things that most people don't see on a day-to-day.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing these insights. It's been wonderful chatting with you about it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm Susan Gardner for Municipal World with Deryn Rizzi from Vaughan Fire Service. We share your stories.